All right, welcome back to the Roast It Yourself podcast brought to you by Coffee Bean Corral and Current Crop Roasting Shop. I'm Stephen Burnett with Coffee Bean Corral in Jackson, Mississippi. And with me, as always, is Catherine Mansell, certified Q grader and director of Current Crop Roasting Shop in New Orleans, Louisiana. Catherine, what is going on down there in New Orleans today?
Well, it's the very beginning of our day. The shop opens at 10. It's 10:02. So we're making cold brews, making hot coffee, and prepping for some classes that we have tomorrow. We've got beginner brew methods tomorrow afternoon and a coffee cocktail creation class tomorrow night.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Those classes y'all do. I mean, my goodness, like the amount of opportunity people have in New Orleans to just go and learn.
Yeah.
About coffee because y'all exist. You can get coffee anywhere in New Orleans, but if you want to go like learn about what makes coffee tick, I don't know of another place that's doing what you guys are doing.
Right.
In fact, there's not one that's doing what you guys are doing. So cool. They're lucky to have you down there. Each week we set aside about, actually, you are all lucky because you get to listen to Catherine talk for about 10 minutes every week when we set aside this time to answer questions from home roasters and professionals alike about roasting, tasting, and most importantly, enjoying coffee. You can send your questions to questions@riypod.com. That's questions@riypod.com. You'll get a nice shout out from us in the episode, and of course, you'll get your question answered. Today's question we have from a listener named Lori, who asks, and this is a technical question. We're going to break it down, so don't panic. We're gonna break this thing down for you guys. I think it's fruitful in that regard. Lori, who asks, "Hi, Catherine and Stephen. I love the work you are doing with the podcast. The format and the information are perfect for me when I need a quick hit of information about this great hobby." Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Lori. She says, "I love my high test beans, caffeinated coffee for my morning brew, but I find half calf or decaf is a much better choice for me if I want some coffee in the afternoon or evening." I think many of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
I've been a home roaster for nearly a year. I've tried roasting decaf beans on my first roaster, a popper, and my December 2024 upgrade, an SR800 hooked up to Artisan. I prefer medium roasts, about 14%, and I'm about to, and that's weight loss, 14% weight loss after roast. And I'm at the point where I can get my roast there pretty reliably for all beans, regular and decaf. I do know that decaf beans do behave differently at first crack, and I feel I can pretty reliably catch first crack. I do try and achieve the 50-30-20 ratio as much as I can. So before we get to her question, first of all, she's been doing this for a year, and she's already like lingo, check.
Yeah.
Like stats, check.
Yeah.
She's got her data, check.
Yeah.
Like she is on it on all these ways. But Catherine, let's break this down a little bit just so we don't leave anybody in the dust who's not has not dove into this like Lori has. So she's got a popper, or had a popper, which she started off with, which is an inexpensive, basically a modified popcorn popper. Right. And then she upgraded to an SR800, which I love. Now, Catherine, you teach classes on the 800. Mm-hmm. So this is one that is a very accessible to people that are getting started.
Yeah.
Now, she says she prefers her medium roast about 14%. I think that's weight loss, what she's talking about there. Can you explain a little bit about what happens to coffee as it roasts?
Yeah.
Why that would be an important figure?
Sure. So roasting is really just three phases. You've got your drying phase, your Maillard phase, and your post-crack development phase. So as coffee is roasting, what you see at first, and especially in a fresh roast where you have that clear cylinder where you can watch everything that's happening, the beans are drying out, and you'll see them sort of fade out from that raw seed-like color. They'll get that light pale yellow, darker yellow, and they're really drying out during that phase. The Maillard phase is really a reactionary phase. So that's the time before you get to first crack. And then afterwards, that post-crack development. And when I first read her question, I thought she meant she had a 14% post-crack development. Because as I roast on the bullet, it's broken down into just those three phases, so you can see those percentages. but a 14% weight loss. What's your ratio, or how do you determine your weight loss percentages?
Yeah, it's a simple equation. So you want to weigh the coffee when you put it in, when you charge the
Yeah.
roaster. Now, so for like a standard like 250 for the fresh roast, if it's 250 grams you put in, then you want to weigh it when it comes out. So imagine you get a roast out and it's like 220 grams roasted, and it was 250 when you put it in. So you put the smaller number, the 220, the roasted weight, and divide that into the green weight, which is 250. So 220 over 250 equals 0.88, and then you subtract 1 from that, and that gives you 0.12 or 12%.
Right.
Okay, so that way you know you've had 12% weight loss. The more weight loss you have, typically the darker the roast that you're working with here.
Right.
And it's just because it's lost a lot of moisture through the roast process. So she's doing that calculation. It's a useful one.
Yeah.
I find that I will do that calculation if I'm roasting multiple batches and I intend to blend a few of them together. Say I need to roast 4 batches on the fresh roast and I want to end up with 2 pounds of coffee, right? So I'm mixing 2 of these together. I'm going to look at time and temp and look at my graphing, but I'm also going to see the weight loss of this coffee and see which 2 are closest in weight loss, because that tells you what's happened internal to the coffee and makes it a little easier to match them up. But it's a good metric to track.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just a way of measuring how dark you roasted the coffee.
Yeah.
So she's monitoring that. She roasts pretty reliably, regular decaf. Knows that decaf behaves differently, which it does. We can talk about that a little bit. And she can pretty reliably catch first crack, meaning that she can perceive it.
Yeah.
It's very light. Typically, in decaf coffees, it's really hard to hear first crack. Decaf coffees are hard to roast.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're coming from caffeinated, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a very different beast.
Yeah.
Catherine, what's your experience roasting decafs compared to regulars?
Sure. Well, when you first look at them, they're already that dark sort of shade of brown. So as you're roasting and you're looking at everything that's happening, they don't react the same way. So you can have a regular bean and you'll see all of that yellow, tan, you'll see all those color changes. And with a decaf, they're already so dark that you'll see some changes, but not in the same way, not as intense visuals that you're looking for. And the cracks are different as well. You have a nice Ethiopian natural coffee and you hear those cracks like popcorn, like that's what you want every single time. And then you get to a decaf and was that the crack? It's just like a couple of pops every now and again, depending on, which decaffeination process you're going with. So they don't react the same way.
They've been through an extra process. They've been through a whole other layer. Like you take the same coffee that you would be roasting conventional, and then you take it through another process where you steam it and you put it in a solution to break down the caffeine.
Right.
Like coffee is fundamentally changed through the decaffeination process. And I think it's not surprising to say it, but if you're going to expect to get the same results out of it, it's going to roast the same, it's going to taste the same. Well, you're not appreciating the change that happened in that coffee in the decaffeination process.
Right.
Because it's pretty radical.
Yeah.
Another thing too is that the actual cell wall of the coffee bean is weakened through that process as well, which is why your crack is not nearly as noticeable.
Yeah.
And she tries to achieve 50, 30, 20. Break that down for us. What's 50, 30, 20 ratio?
The 50% in the drying phase, 30% in the Maillard phase, and 20% in the development phase.
The development phase being post first crack.
Yeah. So what I would start off with is I wouldn't roast them exactly the same. I would start off trying to do a lower temperature than you would with the regular beans. And also I would increase the post-crack development if you could. Now, when I first read the question, like I said earlier, I thought her 14% meant that was her 14% of development. So when I wrote in my notes, I would go from 14% to 18 to 20% for development, but I misunderstood what she was saying. But I would maybe start off with a lower roasting temperature and sort of elongate it as much as you can. just to see how that changes. Try to do this sort of low and slow approach, and just see if that changes anything. Because during the decaffeination process, caffeine is a very acidic compound. So when you remove the majority of that, or 97 or 98% of that, you're going to eliminate the majority of the natural acidity that comes with the coffee. So it's going to be, in comparison, a little bit more dull taste-wise than regular beans. So I think starting off, lower roasting temperature and try to elongate those phases a little bit, see how that changes, and then come back to it. But it's not going to have that pop to it that it would with the caffeine in it.
Right. I think that's 100% true. And that's something that I think that when we get into her question about what her issue is with the decaf, I think that's a fantastic answer.
Yeah.
Just because when it comes down to, and I think this is what I want to say, we'll move on to the rest of her question, but I want to say this, like, she's roasting based on data, which is helpful, which is good, but it only takes you so far. Because you and I both know, and anyone who's tried, you can nail a roast on paper. You can get it to where all the ratios are perfect. You can get it to where all the slope looks beautiful and everything is just great.
Right.
And the coffee's not right. Because we should be roasting to taste and not roasting to hit a metric.
Right.
These are helpful things, and they're helpful on average, right? They're helpful on average. They're not helpful in that it's not a math equation necessarily. We're trying to achieve a certain taste. So let me finish your question real quick. You've given a good, actually, you've already given an answer to it, but we'll come back around to it in a second. However, she says, when I open the package after degassing the decaf coffee, the beans just smell flat compared to my regular beans. If I brew them, the resulting coffee reminds me more of boring commercial coffee than my typical specialty roasts. I've tried various Swiss water processed beans from Rwanda, Peru, Ethiopia, and Colombia. She's mentioning specific ones. We don't carry the ones she's mentioning, but I'm just saying where they're from. All with the same effect. I'm just not picking up the notes that these coffees are reported to have.
Yeah.
My question is this just how life is with decaf beans, or is it me? If it's me, what do you recommend I do to learn more about what tips can you give me to bring out the notes that these coffees are supposed to have?
Yeah.
Should I be seeking a different decaf process besides Swiss water? Do I need to be adjusting my drying, browning, development phases in some way? Or should I just give up on decaf beans, my afternoon and evening coffees, and the ability to sleep at night? Thanks so much, Lori. Well, sleep is overrated. I'll just say that out of the gate. If you had to pick, right?
Right.
But no, okay. I think this is a fantastic question. Catherine, what do you want to say about this?
Maybe start off a little bit different. Instead of the 50, 30, 20, why don't you try 40, 50, 14? So why don't you change it up a little bit? And that's coming from a profile that I did that has about 14.2% weight loss on a bean that we tried here recently. That's a little bit different. So I would shorten up your drying phase a little bit, elongate your Maillard phase a bit, and then shorten your development and see what that does. See how that changes the bean. And then you may have something where you'll have both of your both of your plans for regular and decaf, depending on if it works well. So I would start shorten up first, elongate, shorten, and then see which phase is going to bring it out a little bit better for you.
That's great. I also want to say, we don't have any total roast times or time that you hit first crack or anything like that, which would be helpful information to be able to kind of say, oh, well, this is off, but your ratios can be perfect, but it can take you 30 minutes to hit those ratios.
Right. And
then it's not a perfect roast at that point. So making sure your roasts aren't overly long, that'll flatten any coffee out as well. If you're hitting all those metrics, then I would just say, take off your scientist cap and put on your artist's beret and kind of slide it over a little bit and just try some different stuff. Yeah. Disconnect the computer, listen, smell, and see if you can get a different result. And now at the end of the day, as previously stated, decaf coffee is been through a lot.
Yeah.
It's been through some stuff, and so we can't expect out of it what we would expect out of a non-decaffeinated coffee who's had an easier life up to this point. My goodness, like have some mercy on the decaf. It's been through a lot. I would just say that, but also when it comes to tasting decaf, my intuition is that when a decaf reports to have like fruity notes or marshmallow or something like that, that we're kind of grading that and looking for those notes on a decaf scale. Am I wrong about that, Catherine? Like you're not when you say fruity on a decaf, you're not comparing that to a caffeinated, natural Ethiopian.
No.
You're saying for a decaf, is that right or no?
I think it really depends. I think you can pick up these smaller hints or smaller taste in decaf, but that overwhelming sort of decaf taste is always there in all of these water processes. Really the only one that I've tried that I couldn't tell was a decaf coffee was that EA process, that ethyl acetate Colombian coffee, that cane sugar byproduct, because it's really sweet, sort of candy-like. That's really the only one
that's my go-to.
I've tasted that didn't taste like a decaf. Most of the other ones is that small little hint of this is different, and most of the notes are there, but they're not as apparent as they are in regular beans.
You have to listen more carefully, just like you do when you're trying to hear first crack. Yeah. You've got to really try to perceive when you're tasting those coffees as well. Yeah. Well, I think this is good. We've gone a little long, but I hope this was helpful to everybody, both on the roasting terminology side and also on the decaf side. And Lori, most of all, I hope it was helpful to you because you sent us a question. Thank you for doing that. Catherine, is it possible in all this that we failed to cover some aspect of decaf?
Yes.
You're shaking your head. Yes. Yeah, we did. We're going to mea culpa. We messed up. We left something out. We're sure. We don't know what it is, or we would say it right now, but you know what it is. So we recommend to our listeners every single week, get in the comments on YouTube, get in the comments on the podcast, and tell us what we missed. Yeah. Put your own notes in there. If you have a decaf that doesn't taste like decaf, throw that in there. If you have, if you've had one of those coffees that's like seedless watermelons that was bred with no caffeine, you tried that, put that in there too. That'd be amazing. I've never tried one. I want to try one. If you want to send us free coffee, the address is on the website, guys. You can send us free. We will always take it.
Right.
We're excited to watch the Roast Yourself podcast grow and reach more and more people. We cannot do that without you guys sharing it and commenting and interacting and making the algorithm make people coffee roasters. Yeah. We also could not do this without the folks who handle our audio and video graphic work for the podcast to make us look and sound good. Thank you guys so much. Our fellow coworkers that allow us the time and space to be able to do this. This microphone that makes us sound better than we used to. Thank you, microphone. Remember to send any questions you have about coffee in general or coffee roasting in particular to questions@riypod.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy roasting.
Thanks, Laurie.